Just ahead on American Black Journal, New Detroit reveals a list of actions to stop racism, plus major changes for this year's Arise Detroit Neighborhoods Day. And Detroit gallery owner Dell Pryor talks about her newest art exhibition. Don't go away. American Black Journal starts now.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by NISSAN Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. The organization New Detroit has declared war on racism. The nonprofit was created after the city's 1967 rebellion to tackle the social and economic disparities that led to the uprising. Now, in response to Black Lives Matter protests across the country, New Detroit is leading the charge again by developing a list of actions to help end systemic racism. I spoke with President and CEO Michael Rafferty about this declaration. So I am really intrigued by the provocative messaging here about New Detroit and what it wants to do, declaring war on racism. Let's start with that language and why you chose such provocative imagery for what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the best way to start is we've been a nation. We've been one nation for so long, experiencing race and racism, but our views of it and the problems that come from it, the views of our problems and the views of racism itself have been so fragmented, as have the challenges that come from racism. And because of that fragmentation, historic fragmentation, we find ourselves at a time where people are starting to come together with a common acknowledgement that it's a problem without, I would say, a strong direction, and without, a lot of, good steps and necessary steps to take to eliminate this problem that I think we're all starting to realize collectively is something that affects us all. And so it was important for us to have a singular statement, much like the war on poverty, or much like the war on drugs, or the war on terrorism, that continued to galvanize people in a common direction.
Do you feel as though that is significantly different than it was before? This idea of people coming together around the idea that this is a problem. I always worry that when we see massive demonstrations, when we have this conversation about inequality or racism, systemic racism, that we're talking to each other about this, that those of us who get it and who feel like these are, signature problems in American society, are talking to other people who feel the same way, and that we're not really reaching the people who don't understand or don't or who don't want to. But this time I've heard a lot of people say that it seems broader and that it seems to be pulling people in who weren't in before. Is that your experience as well?
It is. And, I think I share your caution, but this is a time, and, in the conversation or the work around racial justice, hope is I think far more necessary than most other industries, and a lot of us are still cautious, but a lot of us are still becoming more optimistic and more hopeful, having heard the NFL make, a few changes, and NASCAR and others. My concern, quite frankly, is that that's PR, rather than real systems change, which is part of the reason why it was so timely and important for us to, have such a bold declaration to get people to, stay on course and stay on path, rather than have the media cycles sort of, dictate the passion and momentum around anti-racism. I get concerned when I hear, our president, say some of the things that he said recently, about, death by police, and how, there's no disparity, and things like that. So, I mean, because of the fragmentation that I mentioned earlier, I do go back and forth between hope and optimism about, around where we stand right now. But it just means that all of us who happen to be on the side that you mentioned, who talk about this stuff with such passion and urgency, that we continue to beat the drum, and we continue to bring people back to the focus.
Yeah. So let's talk specifically about this announcement of a war on racism. What will that mean? And what is the hope for substantive change there? What are the things that you're looking at as indicators that we might be winning the war on racism?
Yeah, well, so there are some very practical first steps that were laid out in the declaration, having individuals start doing the work on themselves being one of them, right? I mean, we see captains of industry across the country say that they're committed to anti-racism now. I guarantee that many of them go back to their boardrooms and go back to their offices and say, okay, and wipe the sweat off their head, but now what do I do? The very first step is working on yourself, and that's laid out in the declaration. Beyond that, treating your organization and your institution, as an anti-racist establishment, and that means looking at anti-racism and the move toward it as important as the bottom line. Applying some of the same things that you do to your organizational focus, on the bottom line, like continuous improvement, and like doing, audits and understanding the data, around your bottom line is part of the success of many organizations. Doing the same sort of thing toward anti-racism is important. The amount of investment that needs to go into anti-racism and anti-racist work is substantial, because it's so systemic, because racism is so systemic. And anytime we've ever had a big problem in this country or in the world, whether it's, mobility, getting from the East Coast to the West Coast, a massive capital improvement, a capital investment went into that. Getting to the moon, a massive capital investment went into that, dismantling, public health crises and issues like cancer, focusing on research. There was so much research and investment in that. Beyond that, there needs to be investment into the space of researching ways to deal with racism and building the right interventions. And, so I'm hoping, those three next steps, people start really focusing on themselves, people start really deeply focusing on their institutions, and then people start really investing in, anti-racism as a practice. I'm hoping those three things happen and happen quickly.
Yeah. When we talk about this issue, and particularly the work on self, the work on your own space, I think you're right that for a lot of people that's puzzling. I would imagine that New Detroit is there in part to help educate people about what that means. You get a lot of people who mean well and say, I do want things to be different, but when they think about their own lives, when they think about their own institutions, there's a little bit of a barrier to confronting some of the things that might be embarrassing, might be difficult to solve. And I would imagine that New Detroit is, at least here especially, saying, hey, we can help shine a light on this stuff for you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, I've been here for about a year now, and the organization's been around for 50 plus years. And, we've developed tools, to have uncomfortable conversations. We're continuing we're taking the continuous improvement approach to our organization, the same way that we're calling other businesses to around anti-racism. We're building tools and continue to build tools to address this. I mean, racism is a continuum. The interventions needed to address anything in a continuum also have to be comprehensive. So we're building things out for that. And, furthering that, I would say part of I mean, there's such a problem with racism, and there is such a stigma attached to it, right? And doing the personal work is hard, in part because there's such a stigma. If anyone's called an alcoholic or called mentally ill or whatever the case, the stigma that's attached to that makes it difficult for people to move into, onto a journey of improvement. And it gets that much more compounded by, more people in a whole institution. And there's risk attached to it. And that's one of the reasons it makes it such a hard thing to change. But we have to build out, something that's for everybody and for every institution, and something that, even gets to the point where if it's risky or if it feels uncomfortable to have these conversations, we have something for that too. So, there's a continuous improvement on our side. There's a continuous improvement with our partners. There are many, many people individually and organizationally that are focused on this work. And we're all thinking right now about how to approach this with urgency.
The 14th annual Arise Detroit Neighborhoods Day will go on despite the COVID-19 pandemic, but the citywide event will have a new look. In past years, thousands of people have taken part in cleanup projects, parades, street festivals, and school supply giveaways. But this year, residents are being urged to stay safe by holding smaller activities. I got the details from Arise Detroit Executive Director, Luther Keith. So Neighborhoods Day is coming up, as it does every year. It is a different year than any year that any of us has probably,
say the least.
Right? So I imagine that Neighborhoods Day has to take on a really different tenor this year. Talk about what that will look like for us.
Well, it did, because back in March, Steve, myself and our board, we didn't think we were going to be able to have a Neighborhoods Day, because quite frankly, our traditional funding had dried up to a great degree. We knew what the health situation was, and we really didn't know. But we think after some thought and planning, and with a few sponsors stepping forward to make it possible, we decided that we could do a Neighborhoods Day, but redesign it in a way that emphasizes safety, but also emphasizes that fact that we spent 13 years building what we think is an iconic event, unlike any city in the nation, involving people in neighborhoods. But how can we do it a day that's predicated on people coming together at a time when we're told to stay apart, stay safe, wear masks? But I think we come up with that. And our motto for this Neighborhoods Day, our 14th annual, which is August the 1st, is stay safe, create in your space. Stay safe, create in your space. So what we've had people do is to move your festival, move your concerts, move your art projects, move them to your house, move them to your front porch, your front lawn, to the driveway. And if you're going to do beautification and cleanup projects, keep them small, 10 people or less. Wear your protective materials, social distance, keep all that in mind. And we think in fact, we know that we've got something that the community has responded. We've had over 70 registrations from community groups, and that may sound like a lot, but the last few years we've been averaging over 200. But in this environment, it's really amazing. We had been getting calls earlier this year, but are you going to have Neighborhoods Day? Are you going to have Neighborhoods Day? And so we're very gratified that a lot of community groups have stepped up, they've registered, and we're really looking to August the 1st to a new and exciting way of displaying Neighborhoods Day to the community.
Yeah, a lot of work gets done, of course, on Neighborhoods Day in the city, but it's also just this nice way to connect with people in your neighborhood and with people in other neighborhoods. And I feel like that's the part that will feel the most different this year.
Yeah, but a lot of the groups that have registered, they have taken this phrase, stay safe, create your space, to heart. So a lot of them, they're moving their events to small events. They're having the school supply giveaways where people can drive up. We have one organization, Yusuf Shakur, and they're going to have a truck. Normally they have a big event with hundreds of people coming to one place. They're going to have a truck driving around the city, dropping off school supplies. People can actually register to get free school supplies. One group is doing an ice cream social on the front porch. Some groups, myself and my other life, you may know I'm a musician, and so from my neighborhood, I'm going to do a driveway blues concert. And other people are doing other things as well. So I think it demonstrates how much people want to feel connected and feel together, even in these very challenging times.
Yeah. What are you hearing from neighborhoods, neighborhood groups and community groups about their needs at this time and how they might look different than they would in years where there isn't a pandemic?
Well, the main thing is people want to be safe. The main thing is people want to be safe, and that is, in terms of neighborhoods, it was our biggest issue that we grappled with, because we don't want anybody getting sick. I have lost, and I know you have lost, people that have been very close to me in this pandemic. This is not a game. It takes people out, young and old, and in many respects it's terrifying because none of us have ever been through something like this. So I think the neighborhoods themselves, the hardest thing is to continue to do what they do, to continue to serve in the face of this pandemic. We did earlier this year, we did our own survey on how groups are being affected, and community groups, and many of them are facing funding challenges, the volunteer opportunities. We have groups that traditionally volunteer are not comfortable doing it this year and getting the funding. A lot of funders who might give you money are putting their funding in other places or more directly dealing with the pandemic. So that's the challenge. How do we serve in the face of all this, these health concerns? And it's been a challenge. So everybody has kind of had to navigate their way. And Arise Detroit is no different. We've had to figure this thing out, and are trying to still figure it out, because going forward, this thing is not going to disappear in a month or two. It's going to be here for the foreseeable future, and we've all got to figure out how we can cope, challenge, and navigate it in this situation.
Yeah. As I said earlier, the work that happens on Neighborhoods Day is also really key. That seems like it should hold this year, that people should be able to do a lot of the work that takes place.
Yeah, we have groups. We have about 50% of our registration groups are groups that are going to do cleanup and beautification projects, small projects in their neighborhood, around a house. Because again, traditionally in May in the city of Detroit, you have Motor City Makeover, which we didn't have in May, and now the city is in July is doing it. But nevertheless, a lot of people didn't get a chance to do a lot of the things that they might have done earlier this year. So the beautification is very important. And fortunately, we have some sponsors that have allowed us given us materials to help us. Meyer's been a great help, being our title sponsor, providing hand sanitizers. The United Way of Southeastern Michigan has given us 2,000 face masks, again, to emphasize safety. And so it is very tough, but the spirit of this city, for all we've been through, is still, in the heart, still beats strongly. And people want to serve. They don't want to curl up in a fetal position, just say, oh, there's nothing we can do. If anything, they're parting upon rising to the occasion, and they want to get involved. And that's what's most gratifying, is that, people want to do this. They want to show how much love they have for the community, how much work, and basically show for their care they have for their neighbors. That's what Neighborhoods Today is really about, and that's what we're going to demonstrate on August 1st all over the city of Detroit.
Yeah. I also wonder if you can talk about the support systems that exist for community groups in the city, and whether they are strained at this point, because we see so much more demand for things than we did before. Are community groups making it through this with the kind of support that they need?
Everybody is, what's the term you hear on the street? Everybody is hustling.
Yeah,
everybody is hustling, kind of finding their way. We just recently partnered, had a conversation with the mayor's office in the Department of Neighborhoods. They're going to provide support for the groups that pick up trash and those type of things and collect it, and to make sure that they partner with us to pick up all the stuff that's collected as debris on Neighborhoods Day. And even the city is very strapped, again, because they're short staffed. So it's a challenge all the way across the board, but we're hanging in there. People are finding a way to get it done.
I know that the registration deadline was July 15, but if people want to get involved, they still can just go to arisedetroit.org, right?
Right, and you'll still find some groups that are looking for volunteers. Again, the volunteer activities are emphasizing that these are going to be with protective materials, with social distancing, because that's paramount. But yeah, people can go to our website, arisedetroit.org. All the events that are registered are on there. Some indicate they want volunteers. So you definitely can still do that. But again, make sure you're well protected, and certainly come out, because these groups need support. They need support, and helping your neighbor, that's what this is about.
And finally, today, we are going to leave you with a look at a new exhibition at the Detroit Artists Market featuring the works of 19 African-American artists. It's called Dell Pryor, A Common Thread, and the curator gives us the story behind the exhibition. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time.
We have a mixture of art styles and artists at different levels of art. You know, there's some that are emerging artists, some that are mid-career artists. And the most exciting part of that is the fact that so many of these artists started out with me. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to capture the progression of the art, like Anita Bates and Jocelyn Rainey did her very first show with me, and Harold Neal. And so I guess that's why I'm so excited about it, because we've covered so much territory in all these years.
Yeah.
And now we're all coming back together. And that really excites me.
Yeah.
To know that we've come so far in the art community, and that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what keeps it going. It all started with a conversation with Jeff and I. One day we were talking about the fact that we showed the same artists for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, my son did his very first exhibit at the Artists Market.
Mm-hmm.
And we shared so much while we were in Harmony Park, which then was considered the art district. One of the art districts.
I remember that from when I was a kid here in Detroit.
Really?
I do.
And then we both ended up in the art district.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the museum and the DSO and whatever. And I said, well, you know what? That carries a lot of weight. I said, that's historically very valuable. He said, yeah, it sure is. He said, maybe we need to talk about that and maybe you share this with the Artists Market. And maybe even do a show bringing all these artists back that I've showed all these years.
Yeah, yeah.
And so here we are.
As you mentioned, you've been part of the art scene here for a really long time. I wonder what you make of the current art scene in Detroit.
I would say that it's been terrific. Because what's happening is there's more diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how some of the artists are becoming very conscious, and conscious for good reasons, because of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And all the changes that are coming about, you know, including the pandemic. And I can see how this has impacted on a lot of their work, a lot of their lifestyles. One of the things that I find different from the past is more artists are being creative about their art studios. You know, they're working, you know, you have the Breakfast Club where artists go to a restaurant. Mm-hmm. So they're finding more alternative ways. And of course, the more the better, you know, because not all artists or not all galleries have the same format.
Yeah.
So I think it's really wonderful that the artists are creating their own environment for making their art as well as selling their art.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever they can do to push art, we can't do too much of.
Yeah, yeah.
Because art is so, so important in our lives, so important. And I think that I have to give art. Art is what's taken me where I am now, you know, because I think that with technology being what it is, we really need to really make art a very important part of our lives.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, art is what defines us as a people. And art is in all of our lives. It's not just visual art. You know, there's the performing art, which I've been a part of for the last 6 years. I've been combining the art gallery with the international jazz that comes about every, I've done that for 6 years now. And I think it's important to combine all the components of the arts forms.
Yeah.
Is very important because it impacts on all our lives, the children, the adults, the old folks. And that's and I guess this is what keeps me going and keeps me so excited.
Thank you for being with us on American Black Journal.
And I want to thank you because I feel like it's something that I need to shout on the rooftops.
Right.
Art, keep art in your life.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by NISSAN Foundation and viewers like you. Thank you.